Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us. We have a major update in the wake of the guilty conviction against former President Donald Trump just last week in his hush money payment trial, found guilty on all 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. What we want to bring to you now, we're getting this news in from a letter that the judge in the case, Juan Merchan, has sent to the relative parties in the case, and this is the gist of the letter. Judge Juan Merchan just sent this letter to the parties informing them of a comment that was left on the New York State Unified Court System's Facebook page, May the 29th. That's the day before the verdict. The comment reads, quote, "My cousin is a juror," and says Trump is getting convicted. "Thank you, folks, for all your hard work!" Exclamation point ×4. The comment was posted regarding oral arguments in the 4th Department of the Appellate Division, which is unrelated to the case. So I would say, and I think it's safe to say, this is quite significant. According to our sources at Fox, a Trump campaign official telling Fox News Digital, quote, "We are investigating the matter." We're also learning from our sources at Fox the comment appears to be deleted from the Facebook page. A court spokesperson says this to Fox, quote, "As appropriate, the court informed the parties once it learned of this online content." So I want to put up the tweet here of the letter. I have the letter in my hand. Molly Crane Newman, she's a court reporter for the New York Daily News. And that's the quote from the Facebook post. "My cousin is a juror," and says Trump is getting convicted. "Thank you, folks, for all your hard work." All right, we got to bring in Jeremy Rosenthal yet again to talk about this. I'm sure he has lots of thoughts about this. Okay, Jeremy, a lot of people are talking about online this very comment saying, okay, conviction, it's going to be vacated, it's going to be overturned, this was a mistrial, they don't even have to appeal it because of this very comment. Is that accurate? Is that how these things work here?
It's how they begin, and it's, again, kind of talking again about the sweater where you pull the thread. It can turn into that, but there's a long way to go. The law favors finality of judgments, and the law also favors leaving jurors alone and kind of letting them do their service. We want people to show up for jury duty. We don't want them to have to serve in perpetuity, and we don't want them really harassed after the fact. So there are privileges which prevent jurors from testifying. So to be clear, here's the steps that the Trump team needs to take. They need to get to the bottom of this. The judge alerted them to it, didn't have to do that. Very appropriate for Judge Merchan to do that. He alerted the Trump defense team of that and give them enough information to start investigating. They have to get to whether or not this thing is true. And then if it's true, they have to be able to file a motion that's got some legs behind it, that's going to show enough cause to kind of break through some of those privileges that are going to allow the jurors to testify. If there's a leak on that jury and there's some truth to this, then the issue becomes, okay, was there juror misconduct, and did the misconduct result in an unfair deliberations for Mr. Trump? So this is kind of how these things start. Okay. They're a long way from making any hay with this, but this is how it goes. And I think we talked about it, right? That in the days and weeks after the fact, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for these types of issues. This jury was not sequestered. That was an issue. Maybe this is something, maybe it's nothing. In kind of looking at this issue before you and I talked, I saw a Politico report, and it was a very vague report. I'm not them. That it appears that this could be a troll who regularly trolls the New York court systems and their social media. But Donald Trump and his team ought to, and very likely will, very aggressively investigate this. Okay.
Jeremy, I have the letter in front of me. You're saying that Judge Juan Merchan, he didn't have to notify Todd Blanche, Trump's lead defense counsel, and/or Josh Steinglass, the assistant district attorney, but he did. But that's not court procedure. He didn't have to do that.
I wouldn't think so, no. The prosecutor has a duty to turn over information to a criminal defendant. That information is called Brady information, and I'm sure the viewers are really familiar that that's evidence that shows innocence. This is not Brady information, and the judge is not the prosecutor. So I'm not aware of any duty unless there's a New York statute that requires the court to turn this over, because probably there was a long conversation with the social media folks and the court people deciding, well, what do we do about this, right?
Yeah.
And the judge says, well, I'm going to send this guy's lawyer something, and I'm going to send the prosecutor the same thing. Yeah. And they're within what's called the time that the court has plenary power, which means that the judgment is not final and the court can still hear this. If we learned about this 2 years from now, it may very well be too late.
All right, LiveNOW look there. In New York City, we know the sentencing date for Trump is set for July the 11th. But, you know, Jeremy, we're talking about jurors after the fact. The comment implies that a juror said something about what the verdict might be before the verdict was rendered, you know, and I wouldn't even know, you know, how that could happen. I mean, how could that happen? You could have one juror say to their relative, this is how I'm feeling, but they don't speak for the whole jury.
No, that's right. And the jury was still out at that point. So one juror who says, we're going to go convict him. And that, I mean, look, let's investigate it. Trump's team is going to investigate it. Trump is fortunate that his team has the resources to investigate it. And then let's see what comes of it. But it sometimes, like I said, it's the start of the thread getting pulled. Sometimes it's something, sometimes it's nothing.
Yeah, you would imagine whatever the investigation looks like, that they can determine quite quickly, you know, if it is some type of bot or troll on the New York court Facebook page. Lastly, though, what do you think Alvin Bragg, his team of prosecutors in their office today, when they got this news, are they worried or are they taking it, you know, calmly, so to speak? I mean, should the Bragg team be worried about this?
I think their initial reaction was, oh, insert four-letter word. I mean, they didn't do anything wrong here, and this threatens their conviction. There's nothing worse than working really hard on a case like this for a long, long time, and then something completely out of your control, spinning it out of control. They'll deal with it. They know the law on it, and they'll do what they can. But you know, due process. Mr. Trump's going to have the ability to see if there's something here, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, is this an arrow in the quiver of the Trump appeal effort, do you think?
Could be. Again, we'll see what comes of it. But it ultimately, if it turns out that there's some legs to this and this is real, and then the judge says, well, we're not going to have a hearing about it, that could be problematic. All
right. And Jeremy, just lastly, because I'm thinking of these questions on the fly, I have so many for you. I was back in Michigan earlier this week visiting family, visiting friends. A lot of people were asking me about the Trump guilty verdict. And a lot of their questions centered around the fact, you know, why do you think we haven't heard from one of the jurors yet? It's been more than a week. It's not that much time, but you would have imagined maybe, I don't know if you think this, that one of them might have spoken out, that maybe they would have gotten some type of exclusive interview, wrote on social media. I mean, we have this comment on the New York State Court Facebook page, but that's from a quote-unquote relative of a juror, not a juror. So do you think we're going to hear from them soon or not? I mean, they're free to go about their daily lives and not talk about this ever again, but kind of human nature would seem dictates that maybe you want to talk about that. That's a pretty big life moment for any of these 12 people.
I hadn't given that a lot of thought, honestly, Andrew, but I think you're right. If we were going to hear from these folks, we probably would have heard from them by now. Maybe somebody's getting a book deal that we don't know about. If somebody's going to speak up, it doesn't do Donald Trump any good unless they do it right now or just immediately after some kind of sentencing. So we'll see. Also, maybe the jury was admonished, look, he still hasn't been sentenced. Don't go out and say anything publicly. That could influence it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think we would have heard it by now.
All right. Jeremy Rosenthal, as always, thanks for going a little long with us today on this Friday. Always a lot to get to. Have a good weekend, Jeremy.
Thanks, Andrew. You too.